I'm Rachel. I'm 38 and I live in Sonoma Valley. I spent most of my life on a vineyard that doesn't remember me anymore. The chapel smelled like old wood and lilies. It wasn't a large space, but it held the kind of quiet that felt like judgment. I sat in the very last pew, tucked into the shadows, hands folded in black gloves that trembled no matter how still I tried to be. My veil was long, not for grief, but for anonymity. I didn't want them to see me, not yet. My breathing was shallow, like I might disappear entirely if I made a sound. At the front, my brother Derek stood tall behind the pulpit, his suit perfect, his voice polished. He spoke of legacy discipline, the values our fathers supposedly passed on to us. He sounded more like he was presenting a quarterly report than saying goodbye to the man who raised us. He said our father built everything we are today, that he was a visionary, that he led our family with strength and purpose. I closed my eyes. I didn't know which family he meant. The one I remembered disappeared long ago, and whatever was left after Mom died no longer had a place for me. They didn't yell, they didn't blame, they just stopped including me. It didn't happen all at once. At first, it was smaller things. A birthday call left unanswered, a family dinner no one told me about. I didn't push back. I told myself they were grieving. I told myself it wasn't intentional. I told myself a lot of things. But the truth is, I vanished quietly. No confrontation, no goodbye, just silence. And now I was here again, veiled and invisible, listening to my brother tell a room full of strangers that our father was a pillar of strength. Derek believed every word he said. Maybe he needed to. From where I sat, I could see Jenna, Derek's wife, sitting with their 3 children in the front row. Picture perfect. Like they had rehearsed this. The rows behind them were filled with business partners, neighbors, people from church. They all nodded along like they were watching a play. None of them noticed me. Not even when Mr. Gordon, the family attorney, stepped quietly to the side of the podium. He opened a manila folder and cleared his throat. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut clean through the air. In accordance with Mr. Callahan's revised will dated 8 months ago, the primary beneficiary of the Callahan Vineyard Trust and all associated holdings is Rachel Callahan. The room froze. My name didn't just break the silence, it shattered it. Dozens of faces turned at once, looking for someone they hadn't thought about in years, looking for the ghost they never expected to return. I didn't move. I didn't lift my veil. I just sat still and let them stare. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't asking to be seen. I was already here, present, watching, and this time I wasn't going anywhere. I grew up thinking the vineyard was ours in a way nothing else ever could be. It was where my mother Evelyn taught me the rhythm of things, how to feel the soil between your fingers, how to test the grapes with your eyes closed, how to hum a tune just loud enough to keep the birds from stealing the fruit. She moved through the rows with purpose and grace. I followed close behind, carrying notebooks, clipboards, anything she asked me to. I liked being useful. She used to tell me I had her hands, steady, small, suited for careful work. I believed her. I wanted to. Derek was 10 years younger. Back then, he was just the kid who ran between the vines with jelly on his cheeks, waving a toy plane. I adored him. He was sweet and curious. Always wanted to be where I was. He'd sit on a barrel and watch me record the harvest data like it was magic. Mom would smile from the kitchen window and say we were her balance. I was her roots. Derek was her joy. When I was 17, she let me name the vineyard's first bottle. I chose Evelyn's Light. I designed the label with pressed wildflowers and hand lettering. She cried when she saw it. We weren't a polished family, but we were real. Our holidays were messy loud. Our birthdays felt like entire events with hand-drawn cards and burnt cake edges. I wrapped every gift with ribbons and tags made from scrap paper. They called me sentimental. I didn't mind. After Mom died, everything felt quieter, too quiet, like the air changed. I tried to hold it all together. I made the cinnamon rolls she used to make every Sunday. I took over the bookkeeping. I checked the barrels and brought coffee to the crew at sunrise. Dad didn't ask me to. No one did. But I didn't know how else to keep her close. He got colder, not in a cruel way, just distant. If I offered help with planning the memorial, he waved it off. Derek's handling it, he said. That became the pattern. Derek came back from business school with expensive shoes and confident handshakes. People listened when he spoke. He was good at it. He called meetings in the kitchen, then in the office. He talked about optimization, market positioning, brand identity. I didn't always understand what he meant, but Dad looked proud. That was enough for them. I kept baking. I still showed up at every harvest. Still checked invoices, still packed samples for distributors when no one else wanted to. No one told me to stop, they just stopped mentioning me in emails. The old branding I had helped create was replaced with sleeker, cleaner designs. The label I once made was discontinued. Evelyn's Light disappeared from the shelf. Dad said it was time for a fresh image. Derek called it forward thinking. I nodded and smiled. That's what I did. But something inside me started to ache. The recipe card my mom had handwritten vanished from the kitchen drawer. The playlist she used for harvest days was replaced by ambient beats. Her name didn't come up anymore in meetings, or at meals, or anywhere. Sometimes I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe they really were just trying to modernize things. But when I found myself looking for her photo and realized it had been taken off the wall, I stopped pretending. I wasn't part of the future they wanted. I was the soft edges, the past, the glue that held them together once but now felt unnecessary. No one said I was out, they didn't need to. They just stopped seeing me. It didn't happen in one big moment. No slammed doors, no final argument, no dramatic declaration, just a slow peeling away of presence. At first, I noticed small things. A staff meeting I wasn't told about, a spreadsheet update I never received. I told myself it was oversight. Everyone was overwhelmed and grief made things messy, but the feeling stayed. One day, I went to log into the accounting software to update payroll notes. The password no longer worked. I tried the backup. That one had been changed too. I emailed Derek. He replied 2 days later, quick and cheerful. We've updated access, but I'll handle it from here. Thanks for everything. Thanks for everything. I sat there rereading it, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. I didn't reply. The kitchen changed next, slowly at first. The glass jars were rearranged, the spice rack moved. Then the recipe card, the one Mom wrote by hand on yellowing index paper folded at the corners stained with cinnamon and years. Gone. I checked every drawer, every tin box. It wasn't misfiled, it was removed. The worst part was how no one mentioned it, like it had never been there. I still brought over Sunday rolls, still used her recipe even if I had to go by memory. I didn't expect thanks anymore. I just needed to feel like some part of her still lived inside that house. They redesigned the wine labels next. Sleek minimalist. Derek said the new look tested better with urban buyers. Evelyn's Light disappeared from the shelf, replaced by a bold new Cabernet called Iron Valley. It sounded cold, but that was the point. I asked about the change during a tasting event. Derek gave me a sideways glance and said it was time we moved on from sentiment. He smiled while saying it. Guests sipped their samples. No one noticed me put my glass down half full. I started to visit less, but I still sent birthday cards to my nephews. Still brought little gifts I thought Jenna might like. A scarf, a handmade jam, a candle she once mentioned. She never said thank you, but I kept trying. I thought maybe love could be enough. That showing up mattered even if no one asked me to. Then came the receptionist. I found an old folder of vineyard specs in my garage, stuff from the early days, Mom's notes mixed with supplier contact sheets and layout drafts. I thought someone might still need them. I brought them to the new office. There was a young woman at the front desk, probably 22, bright smile, perfect posture. Hi, I'm Rachel, I said. Richard Callahan's daughter? She blinked, tilted her head. Oh, I didn't know he had a daughter. The words hit me harder than a slap. I managed a small nod. That's all right. I'll just leave these here. She gave a polite smile, already distracted by her screen. I walked out to the parking lot with my breath caught in my throat. That evening, I stopped by Dad's house. I brought cinnamon rolls, again soft and sweet, still warm from the oven. I held the box gently like it was the only piece of my mother I had left. He was watching television, didn't pause it when I walked in, just glanced over and held out a hand. He took one roll bit into it. Not bad, he said. Do you remember Mom taught me how to make these? When I was 8, I asked. He didn't look up. You don't have to bring something every time, Rachel. You don't have to try so hard. That line stayed with me for weeks. You don't have to try so hard. But trying was all I had left. Trying to be remembered. Trying to matter. Trying to be seen. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway longer than I should have. The porch light flickered. The house I grew up in looked smaller than I remembered. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to, but because even my sadness had nowhere to land anymore. I used to think silence meant peace, that if I just stayed quiet, I could stay close. But silence can also be its own kind of cruelty. I wasn't pushed out with anger, I was erased with ease. It came on a Tuesday, no return address, just a plain brown package sitting on my porch with my name written in the looping script I hadn't seen in years. I held it like it might break. Something about the way my name was written felt old and tender. I carried it inside and sat down at the kitchen table without taking off my coat. Inside the box was a small velvet pouch and a letter tied with twine. The paper was thick, slightly yellowed. I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother's. I pressed the letter to my chest before I opened it. My hands trembled more than I wanted them to. Her words felt alive like she had somehow been waiting for this moment too. My dearest Rachel, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. That thought alone breaks my heart. She told me she had seen it all, the way our father stopped looking at me, the way Derek took over, the way I stayed kind anyway, present, loyal, even when no one asked me to be. She told me I had never been invisible to her, that she saw me always, that I was never the afterthought they made me believe I was. My breath caught in my throat. I closed my eyes and felt her voice settle into the quiet of the kitchen. Her words softened the edges of everything. In the pouch was a small brass key. I turned it in my hand, cold, heavy, unmistakably old. She didn't explain what it was for, only wrote, "This is yours. You'll know what to do with it when the time comes." The next morning, I called Mr. Gordon, the family attorney. He sounded surprised but not confused. "I've been wondering when you'd reach out," he said. We met in his office that afternoon. He offered me coffee and pulled a thick folder from his drawer. "Your mother left specific instructions," he said, "and your father, well, he eventually honored them." He showed me the documents, all notarized, all binding, all pointing to one thing: ownership of the Vineyard Trust, signed to me, quietly, completely. I didn't say anything for a long time. My hands rested in my lap. I could hear the faint ticking of the wall clock. "This changes everything," he said softly. I nodded, but what I felt wasn't victory. It was clarity. For years, I had waited for someone to offer me a place again, a title, a role, a reason. But I didn't need permission anymore. I wasn't asking to be seen. I already was, always had been, by the one person who mattered most. My mother had given me more than a key. She had given me back my name. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone take it away. We met at a small law office on the edge of town. No vineyard views, no family portraits, just a beige room with water-stained ceiling tiles and a long wooden table that looked borrowed from a library. I arrived early, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to breathe. I wore a soft cream blouse and my mother's silver pendant. Derek came in 5 minutes late alone. He didn't smile, just nodded once quick like muscle memory. He looked tired. Not in the way people look after a long day, but the way someone looks when certainty has started to crack. I didn't offer small talk. Mr. Gordon began. He laid out the documents carefully one by one. My mother's directive, my father's final statement, the sealed file containing the trust transfer. Derek's lawyer tried to argue. He said intent doesn't always mean enforceable. Mr. Gordon didn't blink. In this case, it does. Derek stayed quiet. His fingers tapped the table. I watched him not with anger, but with distance, like someone seeing the whole picture for the first time. Finally, he looked at me. "Why now, Rachel?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. I just spoke. "You never left me, Derek. I was erased, slowly, deliberately, and I let it happen because I thought if I stayed quiet, I might still belong." He looked down, no response, just a long breath. "But then Mom left me the key to the vineyard, to the truth, and I remembered who I was." I turned to Mr. Gordon. "I'm not here to undo anything. I'm here to reclaim what was already mine." "That's well within your rights," he said. Derek rubbed his temple. "What do you want to do with it?" I paused. "I want to bring back Evelyn's light. I want to reopen the community harvest days, reinstate the staff bonuses. This isn't about erasing you. It's about restoring what mattered." He stared at me, then nodded almost imperceptibly. "You sound like Mom," he said. "She never left me, even when you did." The silence that followed was heavy but clean. Mr. Gordon slid the folder toward him. "All we need is a signature." Derek picked up the pen. He signed, no hesitation, no speech. Then he pushed the folder toward me. I signed too. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like gravity shifting back into place. As we stood to leave, I turned to him one last time. I stopped waiting for permission to belong. He didn't argue. And I walked out with everything I came for, not control, not revenge, recognition, and my name. I didn't walk back into the vineyard with a clipboard or a title. I didn't fire anyone or rearrange the office. I started with something smaller. I reopened an old account my mother and I used to use for harvest supplies. I made a list of the crew she trusted, the ones who knew the land by heart. Hector, Alma, Gwen, and even one of the old delivery drivers who still remembered where she kept the ledger. We met for coffee, no agenda, just stories. Hector spoke first. "It doesn't feel the same anymore," he said. "Not bad, just different, distant." He told me bonuses had stopped, turnover was high, the land felt like it was being treated as output, not memory. I listened, not to fix anything right away, but because they needed to be heard. While Mr. Gordon worked through shareholder updates, I stayed on the edges. I walked the southern rows, touched the vines with both hands. There was a silence in the soil I remembered. Not empty, waiting. Elma called one evening. She said there was something I needed to see. We met at the back house behind the vineyard, the one Mom once used for drying herbs and sorting ribbon. She handed me a small tin box and a leather-bound journal. It was my mother's. Inside were pages and pages of notes, soil patterns, weather charts, handwritten feedback from staff, ideas for future blends. She had been dreaming all along, planning, preparing. On the final page she had written, "If they ever forget what this land means, remind them." I closed the book and wept. This wasn't about changing the vineyard, it was about waking it back up. I started drafting a proposal to bring back Evelyn's Light. Same blend, same label design, same spirit. I asked the tasting staff if they wanted to run a small artisan event on the weekends. Every hand went up. I walked the rows every morning, not with authority, with presence. When people saw me, they started calling me Rachel again. Not Miss, not Ma'am, just Rachel. We reopened the old community barn, rehung the wind chimes, restored the staff lunch table with the crooked leg my mother never fixed on purpose, because she said it gave the room character. The vineyard didn't need a new future, it needed its heart back. So I gave it what it had given me: patience, belief, time. And I led with the one thing I never stopped holding on to: my mother's vision, her voice in my memory. If they ever forget what this land means, remind them. The letter came without warning. No envelope, just a folded sheet of lined paper slipped into my mailbox like a breath someone held too long. The handwriting was Derek's. He kept it short, honest. He said he didn't know the right words, that he'd spent weeks trying to find something that didn't sound too late. He admitted he had been wrong about me, about Mom, about what mattered. He said he thought he was protecting the vineyard, doing what Dad wanted. But in the process, he stopped seeing me. Maybe he never really had. He ended by asking if I would ever walk the vineyard with him. No lawyers, no roles, just brother and sister. I read it 3 times. It didn't bring tears, it brought stillness. The next morning, I wrote back, "I'll be walking the Southfield Vines this Saturday at 4. You're welcome to join. If not, that's okay too." I didn't expect him to come, but at 3:58 I saw his car pull onto the gravel drive. He stepped out slowly. No suit, just jeans and an old windbreaker. He looked older than I remembered. He didn't say anything, just nodded and fell into step beside me. We walked in silence for a while. The grape leaves were beginning to curl at the edges, touched by early fall. The air smelled faintly of soil and dust and something sweet in the distance. He paused at one of the posts near the lower row, the one Mom used to tie ribbons on when a vine needed extra care. "Do you remember when she gave us that little basket and told us to find the most dignified grape?" he asked. I laughed quietly. We had no idea what that meant. We just picked whatever looked shiny. He smiled, but his voice stayed low. "She just needed to keep us busy, but it felt like magic back then." We stood for a long moment beside that post. He turned to me, eyes softer than I had ever seen them. "I tried so hard to be like Dad," he said. "I thought that's what the vineyard needed. Someone decisive, in charge. I thought soft meant weak." He looked out across the rows, but I see now. I was wrong. You were the one who understood this place. Mom did too. I didn't interrupt. I let the words land where they needed to. "I'm not angry anymore," I said, "but I won't pretend it didn't cost me something." He nodded. "I know." We didn't hug. We didn't cry. But we stayed there side by side, watching the light filter through the vines. He pointed to a patch of purple bloom near the edge. "Is that wild verbena?" "It is," I said. "I planted it for Mom. She always loved it." "She would have liked that," he said. "She did," I replied. "That's why I planted it." And that was enough. Sometimes peace doesn't come with answers. It comes with a shared step, a quiet field, a moment where no one turns away. It comes when someone finally sees what's always been there. The changes didn't happen overnight. I didn't announce anything or make speeches. I just started showing up. I met with the old bottling crew. I brought them Evelyn's tasting notes and asked if they wanted to bring her blend back. Every hand on the table reached for the folder. We renamed the visitor center. A carved wooden sign went up that simply read, "The Evelyn Callahan House." I stood under it the first morning it opened and felt something ease inside me. The staff began laughing again. I heard stories in the break room I hadn't heard in years. Someone started playing jazz in the tasting room on Sundays, and no one told them to turn it off. We hosted our first community harvest in 5 years. The kids ran through the vines with little baskets. The elders sat at folding tables and told stories about the first bottling season. Evelyn's Light sold out by the third week. People said it tasted like memory. I said it tasted like home. I didn't take photos. I didn't post about it. I just let it be what it was. One morning, a little girl named Molly ran up barefoot with purple-stained hands and a jar clutched in her arms. She smiled wide and said, "Miss Rachel, do you want to see the jam we made?" I knelt down and took it from her gently. I told her I'd never had better. As she ran back toward the barn, I looked out over the fields. Everything glowed soft gold, warmed by something deeper than sun. I used to wait for someone to hand me a place, to pull out a chair, to say you matter here. But I don't wait anymore. I became the light I thought I had lost. And this vineyard, once a place of silence and absence, now breathes again. Not because I fought to control it, because I remembered how to love it back to life. I used to think revenge needed fire, that to be heard you had to break something, that silence meant defeat. But what I learned was different. Sometimes the most lasting kind of justice doesn't roar. It roots itself deep and waits. I didn't storm into boardrooms or rewrite history. I didn't shout my name. I whispered it back into place. Over time, the vineyard shifted. Not because I forced it, but because I stayed. Because I remembered what it meant when no one else did. People whispered, said I must have used lawyers or guilt. Let them wonder. I wasn't here to prove anything. The truth was simpler. I didn't want to win. I wanted to come home. And now I have. Not because someone opened the door, but because I stopped waiting for it to be unlocked. This place doesn't carry the ache it used to. The soil feels familiar again. The air doesn't press down the same. I walk the rows in the mornings just after sunrise. The light is soft, the kind my mother loved best. Sometimes I pause by the old fence. The wild verbena sways quiet and sure, and I breathe. I don't feel triumphant. I feel steady. That's the word I keep coming back to. I didn't conquer this land, I became it. That's the real victory, not in erasing the past, but in choosing not to be erased. And now I move through these fields with nothing left to prove, just presence, just peace. Because strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply stays.